Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a really incredible story about resilience, hidden potential, and honestly, the sheer psychological friction of just waiting for results. It all starts with a girl named Emma. She lived in this quiet mountain village, and her defining trait wasn't just that she liked gardening. No, she had this deep, almost radical belief that every single plant had a purpose. While everyone else kept these small, practical gardens just for food, she'd spend her mornings nurturing every tiny flower. She was absolutely convinced that even the smallest life had massive, totally unrealized potential.
Well, one day, her grandfather, who was a guy known for his quiet wisdom, handed her something honestly incredibly underwhelming. It was just a completely ordinary, tiny brown seed. Literally nothing special about it. When Emma pointed out how unremarkable it looked, her grandfather hit her with this profound truth. He said, the most valuable things in life rarely look special in the beginning, and he challenged her to plant it. He pointed out that the most ambitious dreams, well, they usually require the longest timelines. So this wasn't just about planting a seed anymore, right? It was this massive exercise in committing to a long-term vision way before there's actually any tangible proof that it's going to work.
So what does Emma do? She doesn't just toss it in the dirt and cross her fingers. She completely committed to this rigorous, super unglamorous daily action. She watered it every single day without fail. She actively guarded it from birds that might, swoop down and steal her investment. And she meticulously pulled every single weed that even threatened to siphon away its nutrients. She went all in on nurturing a completely unproven idea. And this is the unsexy part of the process that everyone kind of glosses over. It's the absolute daily grind required just to give an ambitious idea a fighting chance at survival.
But here is where the harsh reality of the process really sets in. The waiting. Days of watering yielded absolutely nothing. Weeks turned into months. And the soil? It stubbornly refused to change. It just looked exactly the same. And to make matters worse, this brutal summer drought eventually swept through the village. Now, the psychological friction of continuing to work hard while seeing literally zero return, that is one of the absolute hardest things to navigate in life. Think about it. You put in the time, you follow the process, and yet the environment around you remains totally static. There's no positive feedback loop to keep you going. The heat was just relentless. It decimated the local gardens, it stripped the trees, and it even killed off Emma's favorite, most resilient roses. Looking at that patch of hard, dry dirt where she had invested all this time and energy, she had to face a really harsh, deeply uncomfortable possibility. Was the seed already dead? It's that exact turning point we all hit, where the effort just no longer seems worth the cost. Because when the environment turns hostile and your past successes are literally drying up around you, continuing to pour energy into an invisible goal feels entirely irrational.
Emma was ready to throw in the towel. The critics in her village, the ones who thought she was crazy and wasting her time, well, they seemed to be entirely right. But in that moment of near total defeat, when she was literally on the verge of walking away and just giving up, her grandfather stepped in with this incredible anchoring reminder. He told her, sometimes life tests your patience before it rewards your faith. And man, it was exactly what she needed to hear. It completely reframed the drought. It wasn't a punishment anymore. It was a mandatory stress test for her commitment.
And he followed that up with an even deeper insight, one that honestly serves as the anchor for our entire explainer today. He said, never judge what is happening underground. He explained that the most transformative growth almost always happens completely out of sight. A barren surface absolutely does not equal a lack of progress. In fact, judging a project or a career or even your own personal development strictly by what is visible on the surface, that's a fundamental mistake. Because the most critical phases of development are so often entirely hidden from the outside world.
Just think about the stark contrast between these two realities for a second. Up above ground, Emma was dealing with severe social doubt, the mockery of her peers, and this agonizing lack of visible results. But below ground? Well, below ground, that seed was executing massive structural preparation. It was quietly and desperately building this vast network of deep, deep roots. That invisible work was absolutely vital for what was to come. While everybody else was hyper-focused on the lack of a superficial sprout, the seed was essentially building the foundational infrastructure it needed to sustain long-term growth.
Then, finally, the environment shifted. A heavy rainy season arrived, and it completely soaked that parched, unyielding earth. And one morning, against all visible odds, a tiny green leaf pushed right through the soil. The seed had actually survived the drought, the doubt, and that agonizing wait. Her grandfather just gave this silent smile, and that really said it all. The unseen work had finally paid off. Because that tiny sprout wasn't just a plant anymore. It was physical proof that consistent, unrewarded effort, when it compounds over time, eventually breaches the surface in a truly profound way. And over the coming years, that tiny sprout didn't just survive, it absolutely dominated. It grew into the most magnificent tree in the entire village, providing this incredible compounding value. I mean, it offered vital, cool shade during the blistering summer, it attracted vibrant wildlife and colorful birds, it fed the community with its fruit, and it became the central gathering place for resting travelers. That one single seed became the thriving heart of the village. It's just the perfect illustration of how a delay payoff, when it's built on a truly deep foundation, yields returns that far, far exceed any quick superficial win. Eventually, Emma asked her grandfather why her magnificent tree took so incredibly long to grow compared to everything else, and he just pointed to the massive root systems sprawling out below them. The strongest trees grow the deepest roots, he said. You see, the delay wasn't a failure at all. Actually, it was a structural necessity for the massive scale of success that followed. If it had sprouted quickly during the drought with shallow roots, it would have died instantly, no question. That prolonged, invisible struggle was exactly the thing that guaranteed its ultimate survival and its dominance. And this single realization shaped her entire life trajectory. Years later, Emma actually became a highly successful environmental scientist. She was out there tackling massive, complex ecological challenges. And whenever people asked about her inspiration, her answer was always exactly the same: a tiny seed that refused to die. That childhood lesson in having faith in the unseen became the unshakable foundation of her entire life's work. She learned early on that if you're going to tackle big problems, you need the patience to let the roots take hold before you start expecting to see a blooming canopy.
So how does Emma's realization apply directly to us? Well, honestly, we are very much like that seed. You might actually be in a phase right now where you are working incredibly hard in the dark, feeling totally unnoticed and believing that absolutely nothing is changing. And let's be real, it is incredibly frustrating to put in the reps and see no immediate change in your reality. But just like that seed, you're building the deep infrastructure required for your future success. You are developing the resilience, the skills, and the true capacity that's going to eventually support your massive growth.
The core takeaways here are absolutely vital. First off, real success just takes time. A lack of visible progress today does not mean you are failing. You have to keep learning, adapting, and growing, especially when you are the only one who knows the sheer amount of unseen work you're putting in. When you hit your own personal drought, whether that's a really tough job market, a stalling project, or just plain old burnout, remember that just surviving during that phase is progress in itself. You have got to keep believing in the value of your underground work.
The ultimate message here is loud and clear. Never stop watering your dreams, even when the surface looks completely barren. Because one day, for sure, the world is finally going to see what's been growing inside you all along. The roots you are building today are the exact foundation for the success you'll experience tomorrow. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a very important question to think about. What unseen progress is growing inside you right now? Whatever it is, keep watering it.